Special message here today at the Kreislam Ravi. This shir today is dedicated for the great schus of Azriel David ben Yitzchak Yishav Yeshua Gedela from all of his difficulties that he have amongst all the people of Klal Yisrael. Today is a special day for me. 30 years ago, on this day, I was going to buy food for my daughter, Kiddush, and I wound up in Adas Ein Kerem. I was hit by a car, thrown in the air, landed on my head, and then run over by a watermelon truck. The truck driver ripped off his shirt, and Baruch Hashem, there happened to be a medic there, the son of Rav Shlomo Fisher Zatzal, who bandaged my head. And they took me to the hospital, basically assuming that I was gone, I was finished. There was nothing, it was just, as they say, L'Rav Chadam Elsa, just to confirm that I was no longer alive. And Baruch Hashem, in the hospital I came to, and the doctor did a CAT scan on my head, and he didn't see any problem at all. Before the CAT scan, he told my wife, your husband will either die or be a vegetable the rest of his life. And Baruch Hashem, he was wrong. He did a second CAT scan. He said, I don't believe in God, but there's no way this could happen. It's a miracle. And from that day, 30 years ago until today, I've had many, many challenges in my life, and some more difficult than others, some very, very difficult, and some easier to deal with. And every one of us has challenges. And this, the Svarim say that we are all children of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu had 10 nisyonos, and every Jew goes through the 10 nisyonos of Avram Avinu. From the time he had to leave his home, Lech Lecha Mi'artzcha, being thrown into the Kibshan Eish, and leading up to Akedet Yitzhak. All of us in our life face these challenges, and we have a choice to follow in Avram Avinu's ways and to lift up our Amunah. Right? Lift up our Amunah. Chazal tell us, the Rambam writes, it's a pasuk in Yeshaya, Avram Avinu is called Avraham Oihavi. Why is it called my beloved one? And other individuals in Tanakh, other great tzaddikim in Tanakh are not called Oihavi. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu that there's a difference between yourself and all the other, and Avram Avinu. Right? When I told Avram Avinu, he accepted with pure emunah. And this is what Hashem wants from us. When Hashem gives us these difficult tests, whether it means being run over by a car, chas v'shalom, I don't wish on anyone, whether it means difficulty in parnasa, whether it means difficulty in chinuch, whether it means difficulty in shidduchim, in zivugim, whether it means difficulty in marriage, whether it means difficulty in health, all of these areas and more, whatever it is, Hashem wants ahava. What does it mean, ahava? Right? What does it mean, ahava? The Svarim tell us, Rashi and Chumash tells us, when Avraham Avinu was asked to sacrifice his son, he saddled the donkey himself. And Rashi says, Ava milchakelis l'shura. Love, mekalkelis, it destroys the straight. Love causes a person, even as important as Avraham Avinu, somebody on the level of Avraham Avinu, his level of importance, he was considered a great person in the entire world. It was Avraham Av Haman Goyim. Someone as important as Avraham Avinu, when Hashem commands him such a difficult and challenging situation, he does it. He says, I'm so eager. I have such love for you, Hashem. And even though you've tested me in the most difficult challenge that a human being could ever face, right? The Kloisenberger Rebbe asked, he said, Avraham Avinu, he had to sacrifice one child. I sacrificed my whole family, my wife, my children, my nieces, my nephews, my aunts, my uncles, my parents. I sacrificed everyone. What's the difference between me and Avraham Avinu? Said the Kloisenberger Rebbe, the Heiliger Kloisenberger Rebbe, said that the Torah writes that Avram Oyeves Yitzchak. When the Torah writes something, every single word of the Torah is infinite. And if the Torah writes that Avram loved Yitzchak, that's an infinite love. We can't imagine what it means to have an infinite love for someone and then to be asked to sacrifice him. This is an impossible challenge. There's no way in normal circumstances to be able to stand up to this test. Yet, if we turn to Hashem and we ask for siyata d'shmaya and we turn to Him with love, He will help us to endure even the most trying circumstances, no matter what they are. No matter what they are. And I was just in touch with Azriel David Ben Yitzchak in America to speak to him about the challenges that he's going through. And it's quite early here in the morning. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here in Israel. He said, Rabbi Travis, go to sleep. You're not a malach yet, he said. And I said back to him, it's true, we're not malachim, but we have to strive. We have to strive for the highest levels. And if our aspirations are to reach the highest levels, then Hashem will help us. And it might mean that He might give us difficult tests to reach it. Now, as my Rebbe, who I spoke to, maybe it was a little over 10 years ago, in the very spot that I'm sitting at the coastal, Hagoyin Hatzadik, Hagodl, Ramosha Shapiro Zatzal, as he told me, when I told him about a certain Nisoyan I was going to, he says, your Nisoyan is absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible, he said. And then he stopped and he said, there's only one thing that can help you. Rak tefillah, v'zevadai yazor. Only tefillah, and this will definitely help. And what's the depth of Rav Moshe Shapiro's words? The depth is that when you get a challenge in Amunah, Hashem wants you to go from here to here. It might seem impossible, and it might very well be impossible for a human being to endure that test. Avraham Avinu loved his son Yitzchak. He waited 100 years for his son. He waited 100 years for his son. He spent 37 years educating Yitzchak. He spent his whole life fighting against the ideology of sacrificing your children. This was a prevalent minhag, a prevalent custom amongst the idol worshippers, as we know from some of the idol practices, that they would sacrifice their children to idols. Avraham Avinu fought his whole life against, and now and Hashem says, do that to your son that you love. Lech lecha mi'aretzach u'ma'aretzach u'beis avicha, right? And sacrifice your son. Al har asher arelech, on the place where I'll show you. How is it possible to stand up to such a test in human parameters? And the answer is, it's not possible. Where Avraham Avinu was, it was impossible. But through tefillah, a person becomes a new person. This is what the Sefer Ma'alos Hamida says, that when a person davens, he becomes a new person. He raises himself. He raises his level of amunah. He becomes a totally different entity. And that person, with that higher level of amunah, can withstand even the most impossible tests. Hashem tests each and every one of us. And I have to say, I speak to people, and sometimes I just break down and cry. People are going through the hardest tests today. People have family members who took their own lives. People who have sickness in their family, that their relatives, their spouses, their parents, their children, their close friends are going through the most difficult times. With Yanamachla, with whatever it might be, people who have corona, who have not recovered yet. They can hardly breathe. People who have parnasa problems. One family comes to me regularly, almost every Shabbos, and they tell me, we don't have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for Shabbos. And the truth is, they don't come to me often, but I know I come to them because they're living in such extreme poverty. And it's not they don't do ishtadlus. As the Evan Ezra said, that he said, if I would start selling gravestones, people would stop dying, right? Because their poverty was decreed against them. And the Rambam corrected him. He said, no, they wouldn't stop dying. They would stop buying gravestones. There's some people who that's their nisoyan, it's poverty. And no matter what the stylist they do, no matter what happens, they'll be suffering from difficulties and poverty. When I hear these stories, and I'm sure when everyone hears these stories, they just want to break down crying. The Jewish people are going through such hard times, such hard nisyonos, such hard tests. But the nechama is that each and every one of us are children of Avraham Avinu. When Avraham Avinu took his son and said, we're going to Har Moriah, and Yitzchak was like, what are we going for? Asher Erachav, Hashem said. Avram said to Yitzchak, Hashem will show you the korban. And Yitzchak understood that he was the korban, and he walked together with Avram Avinu. Hashem puts each and every one of us to tests each of us according to our level of Avram, and it's so hard. Hashem's mice, it's so hard. Hashem tests us in such hard tests. And what's our job? Our job is Ava Gemura, our complete love of Hashem. That's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants Rachmana Liba Boy. Hashem wants our hearts. He wants us to be totally given over to the Bori Olam with every single fiber of our body. That nothing should be left over. When a person is caught up with himself, he says, I want to leave over a little bit for myself. I want that part to be left over. And Hashem says, no, I don't want you to leave over 1 centimeter, 1 millimeter of your body. I want every single millimeter to be given over to you. And when you do that, then Hashem brings the Yeshua if he sees that that's the best possible avenue for yourself. We're all going through hard times, each and every one of us, Nisyonos. And sometimes Hashem tests us, and we just feel we don't have any strength to go on. We just feel that I reached the end of my kochos. And when you get to that point, the Ramban says that when you get to the point where it seems like there's no Yeshua, that's when Hashem sends Yeshua. When you get to that point where it looks like it's completely impossible and there's nowhere to turn, then a person comes to clarity. He realizes that there is a place to turn. And the only place to turn is to the Bari Olam. The only place where you can go is to the Bari Olam. There is no other place to go. And when you come to that clarity, that's when the Yeshua comes. Hashem should help each and every one of us in our nisyonos, the nisyonos that we have, to reach that clarity, to come to an absolute clarity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's existence and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love for us, and to realize that there is no hope except for Him. If we turn to any other place, it's completely and totally futile. And when we dive into Hashem, we should express this in our concentration, in our passion, and turn to Hashem as a life-threatening situation. Right? Just as when we're in a life-threatening situation, and we understand that there's a glimpse of hope, and we do everything we can to grab onto that glimpse of hope, so too our tefillahs should express that. When we're in the darkest times, when we have difficulties and challenges that we feel that we just can't do it, the answer is you're right. You can't, as Ramosh Shapiro said, it's completely impossible, right? There is no hope. But if that's when you're over here, when you get to here, or here, or here, or here, then there is hope at that new level. A person can lift himself up, mikimi mi'afardal, from the lowest depths, right? From the garbage dump, from the heap of trash and the smelly soot, yeah, from the smelly soot, a person can be lifted up to the highest level. Right? Lo shivi imni divim ini divi amo. A person, the divi amoi is Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Each and every one of us, when we reach rock bottom, when we hit that point. So at that point, the answer at that point is that look at Avram Avinu, look at the test that he endured, look at the way he endured his tests, and the challenges and how he rose to the occasion. And when you do that, and you come to that clarity, complete clarity, that only the Bari Olam can help us, then that's the beginning of the Yeshua. And that is the point that Hashem is waiting for. Hashem should help each and every one of us to reach that clarity. And right, as Ramosh Shapiro told me on a different occasion, right, Anachnu lo mevakshim nisyonot. We don't ask for tests of al tivater al afechad mehem, but don't forgo, don't be mevater on even one of them. Al tivater al afechad mehem. Don't forgo them, because if Hashem tests us, it's because He wants to see our love. He wants to see us in a new plane of existence. He wants to see us. Mi'ashbos yarim evim, lo shivim nidiv emo. We are obligated. Chazal tell us every Jew is obligated to say, when will my actions reach the actions of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Right? When will I reach those actions? We're obligated to say it, we're obligated to believe it, and we're obligated to live it. Right? And how do we live it? We live it by when Hashem gives us incredibly difficult tests which are impossible for a human being to endure, to turn to Hashem and say, "You are the one and only source of my salvation." This is what Hashem wants, and it's hard. And if we cry, then you're doing the right thing. Hashem wants us to cry. Hashem wants us to feel that we have no hope except Him. He wants us to reach, to get to the point of absolute despair, and in that point, in the darkest points you could possibly imagine, right? As David HaMelech says, "Gam ki elech begeitz hamavas." Even when I walk in the valley of death, lo ira ra ki ati imadi. I will not see bad because you're with me. Right? When Hashem is with you, nothing bad can happen. Hashem wants us to walk in the valley of death, as David HaMelech did, and still to recognize lo irarati imadi. Because when you're in that darkest point, Hashem is with you 100%. Ki ati imadi, lo irara, ki ati imadi. And this is the idea, and I conclude with this point today. I make a surah's hodaya. Hodaya comes from the word hodka. It's giving hod to Hashem. Hod is the attribute of hod is on the left side of the spheros. It's din. Hod is the chesed in the din. It's the netzach is the din in the chesed, and hod is the chesed in the din. And the hodka, when a person is in the most difficult situations of din, Hashem says there's great chesed here. Hodka. The Hod of Hashem is deep there. And if you thank Hashem when things look bad, if you turn to Hashem when things are worse and say, "Hashem, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why you're doing this to me. I have no idea. But I thank you for it. And I want to see the light in the darkness." Hashem will send you that. That's Hodaya. Right? Hodaya, as we said many times, from Mama Leah. Yeah, Mama Leah, Leah Menu. Yeah. She was the first one, we said last Friday in Marasa Machpelah. She was the first one to thank Hashem because Vayar Hashem Kisnu Aleah, Hashem saw that Leah was hated, right? And she understood that from being hated, being snua, Vayar Hashem Kisnu Aleah, she understood that in that deepest dark of emotional despair, right, of being not loved by the greatest person, one of the greatest people who ever lived, Yaakov Avinu. And it wasn't Yaakov Avinu's, there was no Pesha on Yaakov Avinu's side. He was tricked into marrying Leah, right? And of course, Yaakov Avinu didn't say Leah, didn't talk to her roughly. He spoke to her with the greatest grace and the greatest love. But it wasn't like Rachel. His love for Rachel was much more warm and emotional, as anyone would be if they had been tricked into marrying a wife. But for Leah, it was devastating because Leah had suffered so many years with the expectation she was going to be given over to Esau, and Leah suffered. But Vayar Hashem Kisnu Leah B'Yiftach Rachma. Leah came from the depths of despair of being in a situation of being snua, and she thanked Hashem. Hodaya. She gave hod to Hashem, and she saw Hashem. You're putting me into such a difficult test to not be loved as much as my sister after suffering so much in my life. But you know what? I see that it's all good. I see you're doing it for my complete goodness. Right? And that's why she was the first one ever to thank Hashem. She grasped this point, that the point of all suffering is to turn to Hashem, Hodakah, to recognize the Hod, to bring out the lights in the depths of the darkness. So let us all follow in the ways of Avram Avinu, who's called Avram Oyavi, and the ways of Leah Imenu, who thanked Hashem when things look bad. And let's not let any situation bring us down. Every situation, but no matter how big or small it is, should lift us up, and we should come to Hashem and turn to Him and express our great love. All our feelings should be over Hashem. We should cry to Hashem, and all our tears should be dedicated to the Borei Olam. And the schus of that, Mashiach should come extremely quickly. We should all be on the other side of this wall, in the Beis Hamikdash, bringing their kabbanos, singing Shira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bringing the Sachim, right? Bringing Korban Toida, 40 Chalas, giving over to Hashem, and inviting all our friends to celebrate the good news of all the joy that we experience, because the point of the suffering is to come to the Simcha. Right? Whoever plants with tears will reap with joy. We should all see the fruit of our tears. If we plant with tears, we should reap with joy, and we should all see Geula on a private level, national level, very soon in many kingdoms.